The first siren of trouble was not the flashing lights, nor the frantic pounding on my garage door. It was the way Karen smiled, like she had already won. If arrogance were gasoline, the woman could have powered every pickup truck in Texas. I wish I were exaggerating. It was a hot June morning in a suburb just outside Phoenix. The kind of day where heat ripples off the asphalt, and even the neighborhood dogs walk with the attitude of "don't talk to me." I had just finished a late-night shift followed by an early morning security briefing conducted over encrypted comms. I wanted nothing but a mug of terrible instant coffee and 10 minutes of silence. Instead, I got Karen. Karen, with her signature pastel visor, clipboard, and a sense of authority inflated far beyond what any HOA guidelines could justify. She was flanked by two private neighborhood security officers who were more confused than intimidating. And there she was, pointing dramatically at my garage like she had caught me hiding a nuclear warhead. "This property is in violation of Section 14, Paragraph C," she declared, her voice sharp enough to peel paint. "Your garage is illegally modified. I have requested immediate seizure until the HOA board convenes." I blinked at her. "Seizure?" "Yes," she said, triumph bubbling under every syllable. "You should feel grateful we're handling this formally. We all know your setup is suspicious." Suspicious. If only she knew. I had spent 10 years undercover for Homeland Security, operating under layers of fabricated identities, stage jobs, and harmless hobbies. And yet, somehow, of all the threats I had faced, cartel operations, cyber-espionage rings, smuggling corridors, nothing unnerved me like battling an HOA Karen who believed a garage with reinforced insulation meant I was destabilizing property values. The universe has a sense of humor. I stepped outside, letting the garage door stay closed. "Karen, there is nothing illegal in my garage." She grinned like a shark emerging from murky water. "We'll see about that. Officer Jenkins, open it." Jenkins, a soft-spoken man who looked like he desperately needed this job, shook his head. "Ma'am, we don't have a warrant. We can't force entry." Karen's nostrils flared. "You don't need a warrant. I am the HOA vice president. That is authorization enough." I let out a slow breath. "Actually, it's not. And what you're attempting is unlawful." Her eyes narrowed. "People who hide things always say that." Oh, if only she knew what I was hiding. Behind that garage door was a secure workstation connected to a federal intelligence grid, a dormant evidence locker containing encrypted drives, and a false floor compartment with emergency tactical gear. If the HOA managed to get inside and found even a fraction of that, it would trigger a federal containment protocol so intense the entire cul-de-sac would be swarming with agents in under 4 minutes. I wasn't about to let Karen get me fired, arrested, or stuck in 18 months of internal investigations because she didn't like the thickness of my garage insulation. I tried one more time. "Karen, step back from my property." "And what if I don't?" she asked, crossing her arms. I gave the simplest answer. "You'll regret it." The officers looked at each other, suddenly uneasy. Karen scoffed. That sounded like a threat. It was a warning. "Same thing," she snapped. "I'm adding that to the list of violations." "Officer Jenkins, position yourself to force entry if necessary." He whispered, "Ma'am, we can't." "Yes, you can." Before he could respond, another voice cut through the air, steady, crisp, and unmistakably authoritative. "No, he cannot." Karen froze. I turned to see a dark SUV rolling to a stop in front of my driveway. The windows were tinted, but I already knew who it was. My supervisor, Director Caldwell, stepped out, adjusting his suit jacket in the heat like he was immune to sweating. Karen squinted. "Who are you?" Caldwell flashed a smile that never reached his eyes. "Neighborhood maintenance." I swallowed a laugh. Karen planted her hands on her hips. "You don't look like maintenance." "No," Caldwell said calmly. "But I can handle messes." There was a pause. A thick one. Karen blinked rapidly, trying to regroup. "This resident is in violation of HOA guidelines." "We have jurisdiction, you have nothing," Caldwell interrupted. "Except, perhaps, a gross misunderstanding of your authority." Karen's face flushed. "Excuse me? I'll have you know, ma'am," he said, using the tone reserved for people whose delusion is becoming dangerous. "You are attempting to unlawfully enter a federal property." Her sputtering silence was immediate and glorious. "Federal? What?" She laughed, a strained, confused giggle. This is a suburban garage. Yes, Caldwell said. And you are interfering with the activities of a Homeland Security agent. I closed my eyes. There it was. The reveal. Karen's jaw dropped so fast I was amazed it didn't hit the driveway. Why Homeland? What? Him. She pointed at me like I was a stray raccoon. Him, Caldwell confirmed. Now, unless you want to face charges for obstruction, impersonating authority, harassment, and unlawful attempt to access restricted federal equipment, I strongly suggest you remove yourself from this property immediately. The officers stepped away from Karen like she was a grenade missing its pin. She stared at me, betrayal and disbelief warring on her face. Why didn't you tell us who you are? Because I don't have to, I replied. And because my garage insulation is none of your business. She sputtered. This is not how America works. HOA rules are here for a reason. Yes, Caldwell said, to maintain community order, not to wage personal crusades. Karen tried to protest again, but her voice came out faint, like air leaking from a balloon. Her confidence melted faster than an ice cube on Arizona pavement. For your sake, Caldwell added, stepping closer, go home. Karen finally backed up, then turned away. But not cleanly. She threw one last glare over her shoulder, the kind that said she'd rather swallow gravel than lose. She left anyway. As she stomped down the sidewalk, Caldwell quietly said, "You need to move." "I know." "Today," he added. "Yes," I sighed. "I figured." He studied me for a moment. "You handled that well." "I handled it exhausted." "You handled it without unholstering anything." "That's progress." I chuckled despite myself. "I'll pack after I sleep." "You have 6 hours," Caldwell said. "Then extraction." He walked back to his SUV. The officers, now understanding they had nearly stepped into a national security hornet's nest, apologized 3 times each before awkwardly retreating. When they were gone, I stood alone in my driveway, the heat settling around me like a heavy blanket. My life, once again uprooted by the smallest, pettiest thread imaginable. An HOA Karen. A villain I never trained for. But I should have known then she wasn't done with me. Not by a long shot. And the worst part? What came next made this scene look like a warm-up. The second wave of chaos didn't come the next day. It came 4 hours later, when I was halfway through dismantling my workstation in the garage, wires coiled like serpents and encrypted drives clicking as they powered down. I was trying to work quickly, but exhaustion dragged on my shoulders. My body wanted to collapse. My mind wanted to stay alert. Being an undercover agent meant living on the edge of constant vigilance. Being an undercover agent with an HOA Karen hunting you? That required divine intervention, and perhaps caffeine stronger than humanly recommended. The first sign something new was about to go wrong was the soft humming. Distant, mechanical, building in volume. I recognized the pattern instantly. A drone. Not federal. Not military. Civilian. Consumer level. Likely the type sold in bulk during holiday season promotions. Karen. Only Karen would escalate from report you to HOA security to surveil you from the sky. It was almost impressive in a psychotic, wildly misinformed way. I stepped to the driveway and tilted my head up. There it was, a small white drone with blinking green LEDs, hovering like a smug, electronic mosquito. Its camera pointed downward at me. "Of course," I muttered. "You've got to be kidding me." Before I could even consider knocking it out of the air with a broom or my shoe, I heard footsteps behind me. Heavy ones. A series of them, in fact, almost synchronized. When I turned, I saw 4 neighborhood volunteers marching down the sidewalk wearing bright orange vests labeled Community Watch. Behind them, Karen. She strutted like a general leading her battalion into war, chin lifted, visor tilted forward, clipboard tucked under her arm like a weapon of righteousness. Her revenge face was the expression you'd expect from someone who had spent the last 30 minutes Googling laws they didn't understand. I braced for impact. "You," she announced, stopping at the foot of my driveway. "We have unfinished business." I took a deep breath. "Karen, I told you no," she cut in. "I will speak. You will listen. That is how this works." "That's not how anything works." She waved her hand dismissively. "After our earlier interaction, I consulted the HOA Constitution." "You mean the pamphlet from 1998? "It is a legally binding document," she insisted. "And according to subsection 18, paragraph D, Residents suspected of hosting hazardous materials must comply with investigative procedures. I don't have hazardous materials. Karen pointed dramatically at my garage door, then explained the insulation. It's Arizona. We insulate, not like that, she snapped. Your garage is practically a bunker. I blinked. Because I don't want my tools melting. It is also suspicious, she continued, voice rising with each syllable. Extremely suspicious. And your behavior earlier was undeniably evasive. I stared at her. You tried to break into federal property. Yes, she said proudly. And you stopped me, which proves you are hiding something. I am literally packing to leave. Isn't that what you want? Karen gasped, as if I'd suggested burning down the clubhouse. Absolutely not. If you vanish before my investigation is complete, that is admission of guilt. Oh my God, I muttered under my breath. The community watch volunteers shuffled awkwardly. One whispered to another, "Do we have to be here?" The other whispered back, "Karen said she'd report us if we didn't." Classic. I decided to reel this back before the situation spiraled into her filing a Freedom of Information Act request written entirely in caps lock. "Karen," I said calmly, "the man who came earlier was my supervisor." "I don't believe that." "Why?" "Because he didn't show me proof." "He didn't have to." I gestured toward her drone. "Also, you're illegally flying that." "It's a safety measure," she corrected, "to document your suspicious activity. Everything is being recorded, and the footage will go to the HOA board tonight." The drone buzzed lower, like it was enjoying the attention. I felt a headache approaching. A big one. The kind only Karen-level stress could summon. Then, without warning, Karen raised her voice to a near shout. "I am hereby giving you formal notice that the HOA board will convene within the hour for an emergency session to vote on the immediate seizure of your garage pending investigation." I blinked. "What is wrong with you? What is wrong with you?" she countered, jabbing her finger in my direction. "People like you think you're above the rules. You think you can hide behind excuses. Not in my neighborhood. Not on my watch." Her sense of self-importance was so inflated, I was almost tempted to check for a helium tank. "Karen," I said slowly, "this has gone too far." "No, this has gone exactly far enough. You're interfering with national security. You're interfering with property values." I stared at her. She meant that. She genuinely meant that. Before I could respond, a car screeched to a stop down the street. Not a sleek federal SUV this time. A battered silver sedan with mismatched hubcaps. And out stepped Bill. Bill, the HOA president. Bill, the human equivalent of a sigh. He was a 50-something man who looked like he had aged 15 years in the last 6 months solely due to Karen's existence. His hair was thinning, his shirt was wrinkled, and his expression screamed, "Why is God punishing me?" He marched toward us. "Karen, what did you do?" Karen spun toward him, triumphant. "Bill, perfect timing. I've initiated an emergency board session regarding hazardous materials inside this resident's garage." Bill's face morphed into a kaleidoscope of dread, confusion, and regret. He groaned. "Karen, we talked about this. We are not authorized to open garages, or seize them, or investigate them, or—" "I disagree," Karen snapped. "And as vice president, my interpretation holds equal weight." Bill put his hands on his hips, staring at the ground like he hoped it would swallow him whole. "Karen, we don't have an emergency board session scheduled." "We do now," she declared. "No," he said, "we really don't." "Yes," she insisted, "we really do. Because this," she gestured wildly at me, "the garage, the drone, the sky, possibly the entirety of Arizona itself, is a threat to our community." Bill looked at me helplessly, the way a man drowning looks at a floating door maybe big enough for one more. "Sir," he said, "please tell me this is a misunderstanding." "It is." "It absolutely is not," Karen shouted. The community watch volunteers slowly stepped backward, realizing this wasn't a neighborhood safety issue, this was spiritual warfare. Bill rubbed the bridge of his nose. "Karen, this needs to stop. You're protecting him," Karen screeched. "Why? What does he have on you? Are you compromised? Is that what this is?" Bill stared at her, deadpan. "I'm tired, Karen. I'm just tired." Karen marched forward, thrusting her clipboard inches from his face. "Sign this. Declaration of emergency. Now." "No," she froze. "What?" I said no. "I'm not signing anything." And you are not holding an emergency meeting. Karen glared at him, betrayal coursing through her like electricity. Then, very slowly, she turned to face me. You did this. I raised an eyebrow. I literally haven't moved. You manipulated him, she hissed. You manipulated all of them. You're dangerous. I exhaled sharply. Karen, listen to yourself. No, she snapped. You listen. And then she pointed upward. The drone flew lower. Too low. Dangerously low. Bill shouted. Karen, stop. But she already had her phone raised, tapping frantically to adjust the drone's direction. And then crack. The drone collided with my gutter and spiraled downward in a dramatic arc, hitting the driveway and exploding into plastic confetti. Everyone gasped. Karen let out a sound that could only be described as the roar of a mythical beast. My drone, Bill muttered. Oh, for the love of, Karen rounded on me. You did that. I held up my hands. Gravity did that. You intentionally created airflow to knock it out of the sky. That's not remotely how physics works. Karen jabbed her trembling finger at the shattered drone remains. That was $800. One of the volunteers quietly whispered, I'm pretty sure it was on sale. She whirled on him. Silence. He immediately wished he were invisible. Karen spun back to me. You're going to pay for this. I'm not. You're going to pay for all of this. I'm definitely not. Bill attempted diplomacy. Karen, let's just slow down. No, she cried. No slowing down. No compromise. I am filing a formal complaint to the city, and to the county, and to the state, if necessary. I will get your garage opened, and I will prove you are hiding something dangerous. I almost felt bad for her. Almost. Because she had no idea how badly she was about to lose. Not by my hand. Not by Caldwell's. But by the very system she believed she controlled. She marched away, gathering her volunteer squad like a general preparing for a siege. When she was finally out of earshot, Bill looked at me with pure despair. I'm so sorry, he said. It's not your fault. Yes, it is. I let her run. I gave her too much authority. I should have limited her power after the whole measuring the shade of mailboxes incident. I blinked. She did what? Bill looked older than ever. She said the blue we used was too cheerful. I stared off into the distance. This is a war zone. He nodded. Yes. And you're leaving, right? Please tell me you're leaving. I am. He exhaled with the relief of a man who had been holding his breath since 2019. Thank God. But I knew better. This wasn't over. Karen wasn't the kind of villain who accepted defeat. She was the kind who escalated. And she was about to escalate in a way none of us expected. A way that would end with her facing consequences even she couldn't fight her way out of. A way that would become the bitter ending she earned. The third and final wave began at sunset. I had packed most of my equipment, stacked the sealed cases inside the reinforced trunk of my car, and completed my secure data purge. The house was nearly empty. I was a ghost preparing to vanish. Extraction wasn't for another hour, so I allowed myself a rare moment of stillness. I stood in the fading glow of the Arizona sky, breathing in the dusty warmth of a neighborhood that never truly felt like home. And then a convoy arrived. Not a small one. 3 white HOA trucks, the unofficial kind used for landscaping and community enforcement. 2 civilian cars parked behind them. 1 van plastered with red, white, blue bumper stickers about neighborhood order and property pride. And walking in front of all of them, leading an army like she was crossing the Delaware, was Karen. Her visor had been swapped for a wide-brimmed sun hat, the kind worn by people who planned to make a political speech no one asked for. She marched with determination, fury, and a stack of papers gripped tightly in her hands like they were holy scripture. Behind her was an entire entourage, board members, volunteers, neighbors who looked terrified to be there, and a local news blogger with a camera strapped to his chest. Perfect. Because what every national security operation needs is a live-streaming civilian with 187 followers. I stepped out of my doorway as Karen approached, her boots stomping like she was trying to crack the earth. This is your final warning, she announced loudly, projecting her voice for the camera. We will open that garage one way or another. I rubbed my forehead. Karen, please don't do this. Oh, I'm very much doing this. Bill appeared behind her, panting like he had run the entire block. Karen, you cannot. I already did, she snapped, waving the papers. I have filed a municipal request, an HOA emergency injunction, and a petition signed by 15 residents. One of the residents muttered, "She wouldn't let us leave until we signed." Karen ignored him. She pointed at my garage door like it had personally insulted her. "Open it." "No," she nodded smugly. "I suspected you'd refuse. That's why I brought alternatives." Two volunteers hesitantly stepped forward carrying tools, a crowbar and a battery-powered saw. My chest tightened. "Karen, you are hiding something dangerous," she said. "And this community has the right to know what. You're about to commit multiple federal crimes." Karen scoffed. "Federal? Stop with the theatrics." I felt something rare stir in me, an emotion I tried hard to avoid while undercover. Frustration. Deep, exhausted frustration. I tried one more time. "Karen, listen very carefully. You need to walk away. Do not touch my property. Do not attempt to enter my garage. I am warning you." "You can't warn me," she said, drawing herself up. "I am the HOA vice president. I have authority." She moved toward the garage. The volunteers followed, trembling as though walking toward a sleeping bear. Bill practically threw himself in front of them. "Please don't do this. We are not insured for breaking into people's homes." "Move," Karen snapped. "No," he said, surprising even himself. I admired the courage. It lasted 3 seconds. Because Karen shoved past him with the force of someone driven entirely by rage, righteousness, and a complete misunderstanding of legal boundaries. The blogger leaned toward his camera. "This is going to get so many views." I shook my head. "Turn that off." He didn't. Naturally. Karen raised her hand. "Start cutting." The volunteer with the saw swallowed hard. "Ma'am, are you sure?" "Yes," she shrieked. "Do it." I closed my eyes. And then everything changed. A low rumble rolled across the street, not thunder, not a vehicle, something deeper. The kind of sound that vibrates in the bones. Before anyone could process it, 3 black SUVs turned the corner at high speed, engines growling, lights flashing, but sirens silent. They braked so sharply the air seemed to snap. Caldwell stepped out of the lead vehicle, sunglasses reflecting the pink and orange sky, like a soldier in a movie poster. But he wasn't alone. 10 federal agents emerged around him, moving with precise, calculated formation, not aggressive, but unmistakably authoritative. The crowd froze. The blogger whispered, Oh, this is real." Karen's face drained of color. "Wait, what is this?" "A containment response," Caldwell said calmly. "Triggered by your attempts to breach restricted federal storage." Karen's lips parted in disbelief. "Federal storage? In his garage? This is ridiculous." "He's lying. You're lying. Everyone is lying." Caldwell stepped closer. "Ma'am, you attempted to forcibly enter a secured federal site. You organized a group to assist you. You brought tools. You attempted surveillance measures. And you filed falsified complaints to justify your actions." "That's not illegal," she shouted. The agents behind Caldwell collectively raised an eyebrow. Caldwell spoke with measured patience only someone extremely tired or extremely powerful could muster. "Actually, it is illegal. Very illegal. In multiple ways." Karen sputtered. "I am the HOA vice president." "And I," Caldwell said evenly, "am the director of a Homeland Security Task Division with full jurisdiction on this matter." Karen opened her mouth. Nothing came out. For the first time since I'd moved into that neighborhood, she was speechless. Caldwell turned to the volunteers. "All of you, step away from the property." They obeyed instantly. He looked at Karen. "You, ma'am, are coming with us." Karen gasped. "What? No. You can't arrest me." "You're not being arrested," Caldwell said. "You're being detained for questioning." "That's the same thing." "Not legally." Karen clutched her clipboard like a lifeline. "You have no right." Caldwell sighed. "Ma'am, we have every right. And we have your entire attempt caught on federal surveillance." She blinked rapidly. "Surveillance? You spied on me." "No," he said. "You filmed yourself committing violations. You live-streamed them." The blogger slowly raised his hand. She told me to." Caldwell nodded. "Thank you for your cooperation." Karen's breathing grew erratic. "This isn't happening. This cannot be happening." I stepped forward. "Karen." She looked at me, eyes wide, face pale, trembling. "Why?" she whispered. "Why didn't you just tell me who you were?" "Because I don't have to," I said gently. "And because your rules don't override federal law." They never did. Her knees weakened. She stumbled. 2 agents caught her arms, steadying her as they guided her toward the SUV. She didn't scream. She didn't argue. She simply broke like a wave hitting a stone and dissolving into nothing but foam. The neighborhood watched in stunned silence. Even the wind felt still. As they placed Karen inside the vehicle, Bill let out a long, weary breath, the kind that had been trapped in his chest for years. He turned to me. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. I should have stopped her sooner, he said quietly. I should never have let it get this far. You tried, I said. That counts. But he shook his head. She ruined so much. Meetings, days, friendships, my sanity. And now, this. He looked toward the SUVs, disbelief filling his eyes. Is she going to be okay? She'll face consequences, I answered. But she'll be fine. Bill exhaled shakily. Thank God. I don't want her life destroyed. I just wanted peace. I know. The blogger stepped closer. Sir, would you like to comment for the channel? Maybe just a statement. Caldwell glared at him from 20 feet away. The blogger ran. When the last agent finished securing the perimeter, Caldwell walked over to me. Your ride's here. I nodded. You didn't have to send the whole team. Yes, he said. I really did. I looked at the house. Empty. Quiet. Temporary. Am I allowed to know where they're taking her? A federal mediation center, he said. She'll meet with legal advisors, mental health evaluators, community conflict specialists. She'll get help. And she'll sign enough paperwork to rebuild a forest. I let out a small laugh. That sounds like a fate worse than prison. For people like her? Sometimes it is. The neighborhood residents began to disperse, whispering among themselves. Some looked relieved. Some looked confused. Some looked like they were rethinking every HOA rule they had ever enforced. But none looked angry. For the first time, the street felt calm. Caldwell placed a hand on my shoulder. You did good. I just existed. Exactly. And sometimes that's enough to expose the unstable ones. I stepped toward my car. Where's the new assignment? We'll brief you on the way, he replied. You're lucky. It's not undercover this time. I smiled. Thank God. As I approached the vehicle, I took one last look at the house, the garage Karen had tried so desperately to break into, the driveway where she'd launched her vendetta, the street she had ruled through fear, suspicion, and endless rule citations. And for the first time, she wasn't there. Caldwell opened the car door. I hesitated, just for a second. A neighborhood free from Karen's wrath. A strange peace settling over the air. It wasn't victory. Not exactly. It was something quieter. Something better. Closure. I got in. The engine hummed to life. The convoy rolled forward. The cul-de-sac disappeared behind us. And as the last glimpse of my former house faded in the rearview mirror, I whispered the one truth Karen would never understand. Sometimes the greatest comeback is simply walking away while the villain crumbles under the weight of their own choices. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.